We just on the last tape mentioned about the documentary that just won for an Academy Award
Right.
this last season. What's the name of that
Twin
documentary?
Towers. As I said, it started out as a failed pilot that Rob Port shot, and then Bill Gutentag got involved, and magically it changed from something that was a tragic kind of look at what had happened to reducing the entire tragedy of 9/11 down to one family, which is what great documentaries do. They give you an insight into much bigger questions through a narrower focus. And I think that the picture will become now, because of the Academy Award, is really going to become part of the permanent record. I said this to Bill about 3 months ago that you're not going to have any idea how good this film really is for 5 or 10 years when all the other images, the ones that have been on, constantly bombarding us, sort of fall away, and this becomes something that synthesizes a lot of what's been going on.
You want to get that?
No, I just want
I'm checking this
Well-
pager oh, cell phone. Okay.
Yep.
As we're going through here, I want to pick on before we get to criminal intent. Deadline.
Deadline. Definitely a show that should not have been canceled. Been doing quite well. The 13 episodes on Bravo. Unquestionably one of the best first-year casts I've ever seen on a drama. Oliver Platt, Lily Taylor, B.B. Newworth, Tom Conti. Who was the last? Hope Davis. It's a pretty amazing cast.
For someone who hasn't seen it.
About a newspaper, the New York Ledger, which is the paper that looks surprisingly like the New York Post, and was the hometown newspaper on Law and Order forever. And it was a show set at the New York Ledger with Oliver Platt as an investigative reporter. So it was in the same post office zone as Law and Order.
You mentioned the Washington Post. What newspapers do you get every day? Do you read a newspaper every day?
Oh, more than one. No, not the Washington Post, the New York Post. A vast difference.
Sorry.
The New York Post, the New York Times, the LA Times, the trades. That's
Are you reading to be informed mostly, or looking for ideas as well?
it's kind of indistinguishable that you pick up. I've been reading the Times since I was, I guess, 7 years old. So it's just like it's like part of life. I mean, you pick it up and you go, oh, but then you read the Post, and the headline on the front page is usually a pretty good story. Headless body found in topless bar.
Arrest and trial.
Arrest and trial. Again, something that is, when I look back at it, almost incredible to believe that it actually got done. First, toe in the water in basically syndicated product that was um, sold to 90% of the stations in the country. We made 169 episodes in 1 year. A reality show that was very interesting. It was mostly reenactments of famous crimes and some of the actual investigation footage. But what was really amazing is that the show was so well done for what it was that by the back half of the order, Rob Port directed that show and executive produced it, and we were getting most of the real cops in the last 30 episodes, all the real cops from all the real episodes or all the real crimes played themselves. So again, a very pro law enforcement show that is still on a lot. I mean, there are 169 episodes, so that it can be stripped. It's again, if you want to know the nitty gritty of the politics of something like this, show is doing very well. It was on in Access, which is 7:30, 7 to 8 p.m. in most markets. In New York and Los Angeles, it was on Chris Craft stations. The Chris Craft stations during the run were sold to Fox. Fox had very little desire to put more money into Barry Diller's pocket on a show that would be running on Fox. And, this is like Was it a directly political act to cancel it because it was, who knows? All I know is we lost New York and Los Angeles in access, which made it economically unfeasible to do the show. But it had been picked up in, I think, 132 markets.
Well, actually, before we get to the last one before Criminal Intent is Crime and Punishment, the
new
version.
one.
Right.
Well, no, and that is, the title is pretty good. You know, it's worked over about 2.5 centuries now, so we figured that since not many people saw the original, we could reuse this in a different way. And it really is the real life. It was sold as the real life Law and Order, and it is. It's nothing is reshot, nothing is staged, nothing. There are no interviews, there are no reenactments of any kind. It's courtrooms in. There are cameras in the courtrooms. We've gotten permission. You have to get permission for each separate case. But Bill Gutentag and some other people in New York have come up with cameras that are mounted in boxes in the courtroom that are smaller than a microwave oven, so that they don't look like cameras, but they can tilt and pan. As a result, you've got multiple cameras in the courtroom, so it doesn't look like the OJ coverage of that one camera. And some of the stuff that's happened on camera has been extraordinary. People attacking each other in the courtroom, tossing over the defense tables, guards, beating people into submission because they've gone crazy. It's a pretty intense show. And Bill is an incredible documentary filmmaker. Put it in some perspective, though, that the shooting ratio in Law and Order is about 4-1. In other words, for every foot of film we print, we use one. The shooting ratio last year on Crime and Punishment was 290-1. And when Bill started shooting this stuff, because you've got 3 cameras doing all the stuff in the courtroom, he said, "Do you want me to send you dailies?" I said, "If you send me dailies, I'll kill you." It's just, there were days that the dailies were like 7 hours long.
But that show's coming back.
That show's coming back in June. I'd love nothing more than to have it a staple of summer primetime. I mean, it is a classic summer show. And it works really well after Criminal Intent.
We talked about the response you've had over the years from law enforcement. What about the legal profession? What kind of response have
I think we have never been caught in a legal mistake on the show. And believe me, there are plenty of people who would be more than happy to tell us that the site was wrong, the disposition of a case was wrong. It's, Bill Ford's, who is one of the supervising producers, has been here since the first season and was an ADA in New York County. In other words, he had Liz Rome's job. I mean, it's a pretty good experience base. We don't make, and Michael Chernichen, who's the executive producer this year, is, as he refers to himself, a recovering attorney. That there are a lot of lawyers that have been on the show and are on the show, and we like to get that stuff right.
It's a great track record, though. Boy.
Well, knock wood. Again, obsessive people.
Talk about Criminal Intent. How'd that come about? How is it different than the first two?
Well, it's a very different show. I mean, the Law and Order, it is Campbell's soup, and if Law and Order is chicken noodle, I would say Criminal Intent was bouillabaisse. I mean, they are as different as 2-hour dramas about cops could be, because Law and Order is a true ensemble, and Criminal Intent is really Vincent. I mean, everybody on the show knows that. It's a single lead drama. He was, the way I got him to do the part is I said, "You're Sherlock Holmes." Katie does an unbelievable job, but she is Dr. Watson. Jamie, for better or worse, is Lestrade. They're there to support that character, and that's vastly different than the rhythm on any of the other shows. But there is a very long history of success in quirky leads. The 2 Universal shows that leap immediately to mind are Kojak and Columbo, which obviously has been running for 25 years. Wouldn't be bad if we got that kind of run out of Vincent.
Because of the extreme nature of the Criminal Mind, was there any resistance at all about this show?
No, you mean what? Being inside the mind of the criminal? No, it's an added dimension. I think that it's actually nobody said, "Oh my God, that'll be off-putting." It was basically, this sounds like a good idea.
And where is it shot?
All in New York, 100%.
Could any of these shows be shot in a different city?
You can carry a film and a camera anywhere and put it down and start shooting there. It doesn't mean that it will have the same visual effect or emotional effect that New York has.
But the stories, most of the stories are universal in nature. You know,
Crime's kind of a universal activity.
true enough. Let's talk about Dragnet. What that seemed like a big challenge to take an existing.
Well, it certainly is a reputation for or a recipe for embarrassment if it's not done right. But that was when Susan Lyne picked up the show. I said that I've never felt quite so schizophrenic about something because I know there is a great show here, but I sure don't want to end up as the producer who screwed up Dragnet. It's high risk, hopefully, a decent reward. The show went through an agonizing birth, sort of the same way that Law and Order did. I mean, changing one of the stars, shutting down. But then the good news is we got Ed O'Neill, who is fabulous. I mean, Ed and I have been talking to each other for around the last 4 years. We should find something to do. We should find something to do. And then he was up for another show on HBO, which fell apart, and then literally I called him the day that fell apart, and he was available, and he said, nah. He was burned. He felt kind of burned, and then he thought about it for a day and said, well, wait a minute, let me read the scripts. And, Waylon Green is the showrunner on Dragnet. Waylon wrote The Wild Bunch. He's a pretty good writer, and he got to see a couple of scripts and was very impressed.
You mentioned Susan Lyne. Who's that?
Susan Lyne is the head of ABC Entertainment. She has Jeff Zucker's job at ABC.
Jeff Zucker of NBC.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Jeff Zucker is the president of NBC.
What about Ted? I mean, the idea of Married with Children. I mean, that's the biggest question mark about him, wasn't it?
No, well, he was on the show for 11 years, but it's been off for 5 or 6 years. And I told a lot of people after the first day, 30 seconds after the show starts, you'll completely forget about Al Bundy, and nobody yet has come up and say, I can't get Al Bundy out of my head. Ed is like the quintessential cop, and I knew him. Well, I probably saw Married with Children twice in 11 years. I knew him from, he did a 2-hour pilot called Popeye Doyle right after The French Connection, playing the Gene Hackman role. So he played a cop in New York very successfully 20 years ago. I figured that it's kind of like riding a bike. If you could play a cop in your 30s, you can certainly play one in your past 30s.
Who had the role originally before Ed O'Neill?
Danny Huston, who is a terrific actor. I mean, he's obviously some good genes there, but he's also, he was up for an Independent Spirit Award this year on, what was it, Ivan's Ecstasy, which is a picture he starred in. And I think has now done back-to-back movies with Nicole Kidman and Julia Roberts. So, I haven't gotten a thank you note yet, though.
So you have all these shows in the air. How do you balance it all?
I consider myself at this stage when you've got multiple shows on, you're basically the fire chief. So, there are days when it's very calm, and there are days like today, unfortunately, which you've just been seeing some of the fallout of, or get totally insane.
Do you get to watch each episode any of your shows?
Oh, yeah.
Every episode?
Yeah, I read every script and I see every episode, and most of the time everything's fine and you don't have to do anything. Occasionally, it'll be 11 o'clock at night, and I'll look at a cut and go, "What?" That doesn't happen very often.
So you get a whole stack of scripts, and that's
Yeah,
your
you
homework.
get well, you get. I get the whites the day they come out. I try to read them that night because if there's a big problem, I'll say something. But again, these are the best showrunners in the business. It's not like I'm going to call up Renee and go, that line in Act Three, can't you do any better? It doesn't work that way at this level. That if I read a script and there is some major logic problem that I can't figure out, I figure that if I can't figure out, it may be a problem for people in Dubuque who are half asleep. But that doesn't happen very often. It's just that my main job is making sure that, and I've used the military analogy before, that if I'm Eisenhower, these guys are all there. You've got 4 Pattons that you're trying to make sure that they've got enough gas to get to El Alamein or wherever they're going. Baghdad. It's the same type of thing. There is, that they're the 2-star generals. It's just a question of how many stars are on the shoulder in terms of who does what.
What about upcoming projects beyond the stuff that we've talked about? I mean, are you always looking to include projects to your roster?
No, they're at this stage. We're only interested as a group, I think, in doing shows that everybody really wants to do. There's no sense in just doing another show. I mean, it's not that we're at some exalted level. It's just that it's hard enough to do these. I know what Law and Order 4 and 5 are, if it ever got to that point. I know what Dragnet 2 and 3 are, and there's one other project at ABC that I hope is going to get done. I mean, we've got a deal on it. It's a question of when it's ready. And that's the biggest luxury I think that I have, is that I'm not on that June, I got to go out and sell something to get it picked up so I can do a pilot in December. We do have, as a group, the opportunity to sit back and say, we're not going to do anything else until we find something everybody really wants to do, A, and B, there's no, there's the core group here is employed far enough into the future that nobody's saying, well, we better cover our ass and get another show on the air. But that's a very nice situation to be in.
What shows that are on the air right now that you admire?
Sopranos, 6 Feet Under. Trying to think, 24, but I lost track of it. I mean, I liked what they were doing. I'm just trying to think what else I watch on a regular basis. Gilmore Girls. My kids love the Gilmore Girls.
The Osbourne?
Not this year.
Yeah.
Like the last year. Well, no, it's like I don't. You know too much now.
Right. They do too. They play with the camera. What's your favorite all-time shows?
Rockford Files. Dragnet, Naked City. God, this is terrible. It sounds like. Well, no, Rockford's vaguely contemporary.
Did you ever meet Jack Webb?
Never. Never met him.
Yeah.
Would have liked to.
Do you have any mentors?
As
As a writer or as a individual?
Well, I could say a knee-jerk reaction, probably my father, who was in the business and taught me many, or left a legacy of insightful aphorisms. Network executives are, temporary people making permanent decisions, and he knew the business. He knows the business. So that is one. I've had. I wouldn't say that Brannon was a mentor, but he was certainly a co-conspirator. A very close relationship that went on for a long time that was very mutually supportive, which is pretty unique in an industry that exists. The favorite meal is Schadenfreude.
What would you say is your proudest professional achievement?
11 consecutive Emmy nominations, and hopefully, God willing, a 12th. That's kind of a demarcation line. That it's great when a show has won 47 Emmys. It's great for all the people who win them. It's great that they won them. But at the end of the day, there's only two that matter: the best comedy and the best drama, because that's the only one that is a group award. That says to everybody on the show, you've done superior work. And that's why it means so much. I mean, it's always the best day of the year when the nominations come out. But I'm a realist. You know, that specifically drama has gotten so much more competitive over the past 3 to 4 years that every spring you feel like you're playing musical chairs. You just want to have a seat. Because look at the competition this year. Sopranos, 6 Feet Under, The Shield. That's off network. You know, not to mention all the other shows that maybe they're for positive, negative, sympathetic reasons, from, West Wing to CSI to ER to The Practice to, there's an awful lot of good stuff out there.
What would you say is your proudest personal achievement?
Jeez. That's proudest personal achievement, I guess my kids. I mean, that's like, it's, they're all nice people and they're all, seem reasonably intelligent. That's pretty cool. I mean, that's kind of on a career achievement or, personal. I'd say that, the kids, they're the only ones that are going to be around long after I'm gone, I certainly hope. So, that's pretty important.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thanks. A pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for suffering through it all.
Oh, no, it's fun.
Actually, I'm going to get some.
This is the front page of the pilot script for Law and Order. This is the production note, which is on page 2 of the pilot script for Law and Order that Mr. Wolf was reading from during his interview. Done.